It's time to talk Miami Hurricanes football. That means Gary Ferman is back as we get to talk about a team that, at one point, many years ago, was the talk of college football. And Mario Cristobal returned to his old stomping grounds with an opportunity to get this program back to where it was as far as the great years. That was even before I moved to South Florida. That's how great it was. That's how long ago it was, the greatness. But even though it's a little bit of a shaky start, Gary, I'm confident, and I got to believe the fans, are they patient enough that they see the recruiting and the writings on the wall that this is going to get a lot better?
They better be. They don't have a choice, Greg. They really don't. This year has been one of the craziest seasons I can remember.
Oh, wow.
Not because the expectations were so high or anything like that, but the way that these individual games have played out. And, people like to joke with me about it. Like, they've lost 4 games, but they haven't lost 4 games because they were outclassed or overmatched by anybody they've played. It's just, you go to Texas A&M, you muff a punt, you miss 2 field goals, you miss an easy walk-in touchdown because your running back doesn't cut properly and gets tackled by the shoelaces. You leave all those points out on the field at Texas A&M, one of the toughest places to play in college football. You're probably not winning that game, even though it's a little bit of a down Texas A&M team this year. You can go on and on. Then the next week, you don't even show up for Middle Tennessee State. Total embarrassment. You throw 2 interceptions on your first 2 offensive plays, and on your 6th offensive play, you fumble the ball away. That's 3 turnovers in your first 6 plays. And then on the other side of the ball, Greg, they gave up 4 bombs for touchdowns to Middle Tennessee State. Okay, and somebody forgot to put on the scouting report that Middle Tennessee State had some Olympic sprinter wide receivers on their roster, and they just ran right by the Miami DBs, got 4 cheap touchdowns. Miami never got into a game against a team that they obviously should have beat handily. Okay, North Carolina, they come out. In the first half, they give up 2 more bombs for touchdowns. So in 2 weeks, Greg, when have you ever seen a team give up 6 bombs for walk-in touchdowns or setting up easy touchdowns and spot the opponent those kind of points? That was a 3-point game that they lost to Carolina. They also missed the field goal in that game. So the point that I'm making, the Duke game that they lost, they had 8 turnovers, Greg,
that's
on
it?
offense.
Just 8?
8 turnovers.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is they have given away their season. I mean, it has been the greatest display of charity that you have ever seen in your life, and it is what it is. They have they're challenged in spots. They're trying to build the roster. They're trying to develop the kids that they can. I'm expecting a huge exodus to the transfer portal at the end of the season, and they'll reload for next year and see if they can do better. But this is a multi-year building project, no doubt, at Miami.
And by the way, that's a good exodus, correct?
Transfer.
I mean, good for let some of the guys leave the program that really he doesn't want there.
That don't have a future can go find other destinations. That's good for everybody.
Okay. All right, look, let's start at the top because this is the big one. This is the one I really want to know about, and we're going to get into the Florida State game, of course. But it's Tyler Van Dyke. Okay, so beginning of the season, there's all this hype, deservedly so, about Tyler Van Dyke. He's a future first-round draft pick, and so forth and so. Oh, Josh Gaddis, Broyles Award winners coming in. Cristobal's coming in. This is going to be, no matter what they do on the wins and loss side of things, for sure this is going to be a great season for Van Dyke and so forth. But that just hasn't been the case. So what's going on as best as you can describe it here in as little time that we have? What's going on with this season for Tyler Van Dyke?
I think he struggled a little bit early to acclimate to Josh Gaddis's offense. He had to learn a whole new scheme. Personnel, they weren't as good at receiver this year coming into the season as they were a year ago. His best receiver, Xavier Restrepo, his security blanket got hurt early. So the combination of just everything going on, I think, contributed to Tyler not being as comfortable, not doing as well as was expected. Now, then they made some adjustments. I think they put a few elements in that he was comfortable with, and it improved things and made things better. And he put a couple really good games together, and then he gets hurt against Duke. And obviously that has now just derailed everything. He did not play last week against Virginia. Likely will probably not play this week against Florida State. They haven't said definitively yet. I think if there's any chance he can play, he would. But I don't know. We initially had heard he would miss this game, so we'll see. So it's kind of like just derailed everything. It has been just a miserable season for Tyler Van Dyke, and I think it'll impact what I believe were plans to go into the National Football League.
Yeah, he can't leave now. No,
I don't think so.
Yeah. I have to ask because a few weeks ago, I forget which game it was. It might have been the North Carolina game, or the week leading up to the North Carolina game when I actually heard. I don't know if it was from the fans or from the media or from I don't know what I was hearing it. Should Tyler Van Dyke, is he going to start this week? Does he deserve to start? And I was like, wait, what?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Who was it? Who was saying that?
I mean, some fans, some media people that were overreacting and not understanding what really was going on at Miami. It never made sense to me.
Yeah.
It was foolishness. Yeah. And they since have found these last 2 weeks how foolish it really was, as they've had to try to fight through these games with a backup quarterback. Jake Garcia is going to be a decent player, I think, but he lost his mind a little bit in the Duke game, and that I think derailed him a little mentally. And last week against Virginia, he looked very rattled, very nervous, very unsure of himself, and that totally diminished his effectiveness in that game. So I don't know what will happen this week against Florida State. If they play at the level they played against Virginia, they're in big trouble. I think that they tightened up the playbook a little bit last week. That's not going to work against Seminoles. If it's Jake Garcia, they're going to have to trust them with the offense and let him go out and execute just like he did all through the spring, all through the fall, just hopefully protecting the football a little bit better.
Yeah, because you could even almost tell, like even on the last play of the game last week, he's got the guy like wide open in front of him, and he decides, nah, I'm not even sure I can trust that. I'm going to try to run it in. I mean, I've never seen a guy so wide open in that situation, the quarterback not throw the football, but you could just tell, hey, I'm tucking it, I'm running it, and it worked. So good for him. But hopefully that'll be a springboard confidence-wise in any way, shape, or form, because we all want to see a good game this week. Everybody loves the rivalries in college football, especially this one. And it looks like the Florida State program is starting to get going. They're a little bit ahead of Miami. That's okay. Cristobal just got here. So, fans, we're all hoping that within a couple of years that these two coaches are going to get these two programs back to at least somewhere similar to what we had many years ago, and that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think it'll happen at Miami. I just don't think it's an overnight thing, and I don't think Mario thought it was an overnight thing. I think he knew this was a multi-year building project. At the same time, you're still trying to win every game. And what I said earlier, Greg, I passionately believe like there has not been one game that they've played this year of the first 8 that they had to lose. They could have beaten any of those teams, and they just took themselves out of 4 of them. And it'll be interesting to see how the last 4 weeks play out. I mean, obviously, at Clemson is not going to be a very comfortable spot for them, but they could win these other 3, and they just have to go out and play and do it. And I think this game Saturday night against Florida State is probably the swing game of the season.
Yeah, with 4 wins, so Georgia Tech's on the schedule. They're playing better, especially if Sims is a quarterback. That's a big difference there as far as I'm concerned. The Pitt game's at home. That's extremely winnable the way Pitt's been playing this year. So like you said, if you could,
you could win 3 of the 4, finish 8-4, 8-5, 7-5, and you're not happy about it, but you go to a bowl game and then you regroup and try again next year.
I think a lot of that excitement was not just Cristobal, but it was Van Dyke. It was like, not only is Cristobal here, but we got this first round quarterback. So we're gonna really do something this season. So I think that, no question, that's where that came from. How much of a blame do you put on the offensive line?
Quite a bit. I mean, they've been kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde the whole season. They were good at Texas A&M. They were okay against Virginia. Then there have been some games where they've just been horrendous. I mean, against Duke, they were terrible. North Carolina so-so, Middle Tennessee so-so. I mean, they've had some injuries up front that they probably couldn't afford to have. That's without question. But that's Mario Cristobal's specialty, is coaching offensive line. And I'm sure he would tell you that he is disappointed in the way that they've played this year.
Talk about Zion as the big one, because he's the top lineman, but he has been banged up. Like, I mean, I've seen him on the injury report every week.
He's played a handful of plays. You will not see him again this year.
Okay. Is he going to leave?
How can he leave?
I agree.
He's got to rehab and come back and play next year.
All right. Well, that's good. Obviously, you get both Van Dyke and Nelson should be back, kind of restart things with a year of experience. What else, as far as because you mentioned the receiving situation when Restrepo went down, and I thought that was a real difference as well in the Texas A&M game, because the youth at that position has just not served Van Dyke well this season. And that game was like the first one. All right, we don't have our top guy. What are we going to do? We're going to have to rely on our young guys. And then they just kind of fell apart on a big stage. Who has kind of stepped up? Any of these young receivers, kind of looks like?
Colby Young has stepped up in a big-time way, and the last 3 games has been fantastic. And it would have been great if they had been able to get him going for the beginning of the year, but he literally got dropped off on campus, I think, in July, and had to learn everything, had to get in shape. Came from Lackawanna Junior College, okay. And just wasn't ready, not close to ready at that point. But they got him in shape. He learned the offense. He kept working, and come mid-October, he was ready, and they put him in there, and he just started making plays all over the place, and he's now their best receiver. So credit goes to him. But unfortunately for Miami, it didn't happen early enough to really impact the season in terms of the big picture.
Restrepo, is he supposed to come back soon?
Restrepo worked his way back after a few weeks out, played, I think, like 15 snaps against Virginia last week, and should be available for a little bit more against FSU this weekend.
I know that we talked a little bit at the beginning of the season about Brashard Smith. How's he done?
He started out slow, like several guys, and they kind of got him refocused, week 5 or so. And the last I'd say month, he has had some moments where he was able to contribute. But another one that, in the big picture, is not having the type of season that they needed him to have.
True freshman who has stuck out. Jaleel Skinner, we talked about him as a guy to keep an eye on when the season began. How's he played? And is there a top true freshman, as far as if you had to give like a 2 or 3 that really has stood out in a positive way?
I mean, Nigel E. Kelly, but he's way down on the depth chart. Wesley Basaint as a linebacker was okay. Really, Skinner has played, but he's having problems catching the football, Greg. And
that's a running theme.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, man. It's like, you're thinking, oh, this kid is like, it's this freak athlete coming out of high school, had this great high school career. How does he get to college and not be able to catch the ball? But he's struggling with that part of the game, so he'll have to work on that in the offseason. But no, there hasn't really been like a blowout performer from the freshman class. Trevante Citizen, a running back who might have been able to do that, got hurt.
Oh, so that's okay. So is he not going to play this season?
No, I don't think you'll see him again.
Before we talk a little bit about the defense, one more thing about Tyler. The system, being a Michigan fan, I remember Gaddis going to, obviously it's in Michigan, and it was going to be, all right, Harbaugh was going to get this spread guy, and he was going to help really turn this offense into something special. Wasn't Harbaugh's offense, but hey, I got to get with the time, so I got to get one of these spread guys. Brings in Gaddis. it just doesn't work out for whatever reason until last year when all of a sudden it was like, you know what? That ain't going to work. We got to go back to running the football and just play like more of a pro style approach. And Gaddis, to his credit, he was able to adapt and change, and it worked out for Michigan. He leaves to Miami. Van Dyke is back to a pocket passer. That's what Van Dyke is. So are quarterbacks like Van Dyke, I don't know about Garcia, but is a quarterback like Van Dyke, is he best suited for a Josh Gaddis offense? Or what Josh Gaddis wants to do?
Oh, boy, that's a loaded question, Greg. I hate that the concept of a quarterback can only run one type of offense. That's just not like reality. I mean, it just really isn't. Whether you're talking about a college kid, I mean, how many kids go through 4 or 5 years of college with the same coach, the same offensive coordinator? Same thing if you're good enough to make the NFL. I mean, NFL coaches are turning every year, every couple of years. Like, you have to be able to run different offenses, different systems. At the end of the day, they are football plays. And so I'm not using that as an excuse. I mean, look, Tyler Van Dyke, maybe part of his development is they had to learn how to operate in a Josh Gaddis offense. Let's remember, this is a kid that only played 8 football games basically last year.
Sure.
Okay, even though he was considered a really good player, he's not that experienced. He hasn't played so many games. He hasn't played so many big games. So, like, maybe the expectations of Tyler Van Dyke were unrealistic without anybody even realizing it because of the way he ended last year with 6 300-yard games against bad ACC competition.
I mean, it's interesting because we talked I think it was either last year or a couple of years ago about Brennan Armstrong at Virginia. And I think it was a couple of years ago. And then last year, he just has this breakout season and everything's going great. Well, lo and behold, he's having such an awful season. And you'd go, well, how did that happen? Well, it's easy. Offensive coordinator left, went to Syracuse. Yeah. Why all of a sudden is Syracuse's offense so much better? And all of a sudden, Brennan Armstrong looks like he doesn't look like a Division I quarterback anymore. So it is interesting how sometimes, but you know what? I think it's up to the offensive coordinator to tell you the truth. I think because of the fact that these kids are kids, especially in college, I think the offensive coordinator has got to adjust to the quarterback and to what he has, which I thought Gaddis did a really good job at Michigan that last year, as I said. But Jake Garcia, when the time comes, do you think Garcia is a little bit more athletic? Is he more of somebody, or is he pocket passer just like Van Dyke?
He's different. Yeah, he's a pocket passer just like Van Dyke. Not quite as strong an arm, not quite as tall. Right now Jake Garcia is considerably behind where Tyler Van Dyke is in his development as a quarterback.
Yes.
Now what does that mean in the future? I don't think we know yet. I think there's a reasonable chance Tyler comes back next year. If Tyler comes back next year, does that mean will Jake come back too, or does he go in the transfer portal? Don't know the answer to that question. Then he's going to have competition with a kid by the name of Ja'Cory Brown. If he sticks it out, Miami's got another kid coming in, Jaden Rashada, who is supposed to develop into a really good college player. So quarterback position at Miami as it pertains to the future, Greg, is very much in flux.
All right. Defensively, you talked about giving up all those passes, those big passes, and yet there's 3 good players in the secondary on paper. I look at them and I say, okay, Stevenson, Kitchens, Williams, that's a good secondary. Have they lived up to?
No. Stevenson's a very good player. He's been banged up a lot. Which has kind of hurt him a little bit, but he's a very good player. Williams has had and Kitchens have both had tackling issues. Kitchens gave up both of those bombs against North Carolina. Williams, has been hit or miss play to play. He's been okay sometimes, not so okay others. So yeah, the great secondary at Miami that people wanted to talk about before the season has not really evolved to that degree. I mean, there are weaker points on the football team, but it has not evolved the way people thought it might.
And then the front seven, we talked about some transfers, including the kid from UCLA. As far as the transfers are concerned, who has looked the part? Who has played the best?
I think Akeem Messidor, the West Virginia transfer, has looked very good this year. I think Mitchell Agudi for the UCLA transfer, he has looked very, very good. Kid that's not a transfer that's probably looking best of all is defensive tackle Leonard Taylor. He's the light bulb was really coming on for him here in year 2. He has looked phenomenal the last few weeks, and he's going to be a really good player.
All right, and so you're looking at that. And again, I know you're not a scout, but you've seen a lot of good ones come in and out. How good could Leonard Taylor be? Second round, first round kind of draft pick player?
I think so. If he keeps developing, we actually had an article on our keensport.com website where we took a look at his Pro Football Focus evaluation numbers. I don't know how big of a believer you are in that,
It's
Greg.
a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool, right? And he's been grading very, very high and has been grading at a level that players in the past that graded at that level were drafted in the first round. So, we'll see. I mean, he's got a ways to go. He's got another season and 4 or 5 games, I think, before that's even a point of discussion. But he certainly is moving in the right direction.
And that linebacker, Flagg and Caleb Johnson, have those been the most productive players at that position?
They have. They're serviceable players. Neither one of them is really, great per se. A little bit of undersized linebackers, but they try hard. The effort's there.
Let's wrap it up by talking about recruiting, your specialty at canesport.com. So you talked about the quarterbacks. Who's the one to get most excited about a quarterback? Again,
Jaden Rashada. If you talk about the kids coming out of high school, yeah, he's a 6'3.5" kid. He's from California. Has really good arm talent, and I think he's going to develop into a very good college player. And then they're looking. They have a second quarterback on the commitment list named Emory Williams. And I think, he is not as athletically along as Rashada, but he has good arm talent as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he sticks. I think, he's probably getting some people trying to poke him out of the Miami recruiting class. But I think Rashada is probably pretty solid.
I hope it's Greg Schiano. My Rutgers team needs a quarterback bad. Other skill position players that Miami fans need to get excited about in the future, recruiting-wise?
Oh, wow. They're doing really well at tight end.
Why not? Tight end. Miami.
Yeah, they got 3 really good ones in the recruiting class, and Riley Williams is one of them. Jackson Carver is another, and Reed McKeska is the third. They've got a couple speed receivers that I know they're very high on in Nathaniel Joseph and Robbie Washington, a couple South Florida kids. And they're looking for more. There's no doubt about it. But that's the ones that I think people should be most excited about at this point.
And then on defense, because really everybody remembers the great quarterbacks and the great running backs and wide receivers and even tight ends at Miami. But defense was also huge. There were some awesome NFL caliber players back in the day. Who is there right now on defense? Are there any high 4, maybe 5-star caliber defensive players to get excited about?
Yeah, they got a commitment last week from a kid by the name of Cormani McLean. He's a cornerback. He looks like he could be a really nice player. Jaden Wayne, a defensive end from out on the Pacific coast that is now playing at IMG. He looks like he could be a nice player. Malik Bryant, a linebacker out of Orlando, is another one. And quietly, they really like a cornerback by the name of Robert Stafford out of the Melbourne area. He's looking like he could be pretty good. And then another one I'll mention is Raul Aguirre, a linebacker from Georgia. and Antoine Jackson is another one, a cornerback from Fort Lauderdale Dillard. So they're making progress in recruiting, Greg. They got a really nice start, and now they just got to finish that and get some impact type guys out of the transfer portal.
What do you remember about what made Mario Cristobal successful when he was just starting out at FIU?
His calling card is always going to be he's going to outwork everybody. Nobody will outwork him, and he's a tenacious recruiter. I mean, he loves the process of going out and getting new talents and improving his roster. And he's done it at every stop he's been to, and he's done it at the highest of levels. So it'll be interesting to see. You know, I mean, there's no reason to think it won't happen at Miami too. But nobody's going to outwork Mario. I'll tell you that.
How, as far as ranking, how do they stand over the next couple of years? In recruiting,
right now, I believe they're number 8 in the team rankings, but they still got a ways to go. They got a 5-star offensive lineman on deck that I think they're going to get a couple other kids.
How do you not get excited about that if you're a Canes fan? I mean,
yeah, they could get in the top 5.
That's awesome. I mean, you got to be patient. You got to see what's ahead of you. That's exciting.
No doubt.
I mean, good going from Miami. The first step was bringing him in there, and now, again, recruiting-wise, you can follow the recruiting of the Miami Hurricanes every step of the way on not the old network, but the on3.com network. So that's because we weren't up to date last time, but we're up to date now because you just made the switch. But you happy? Matter of fact, Mike Huguenin's going to join me tomorrow. Tomorrow? Is it tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, I think Mike's joining me tomorrow to talk about what's going on in college football. You know Mike?
Yeah. We haven't met yet, but I obviously know him, you know.
Yeah, tomorrow.
My name.
So, and I know Brian used to I think you guys were Brian Matthews at Auburn with your old stomping grounds. You got to talk to him tomorrow about Auburn. What do you think about before I let you go? You got a coach for me who might go to Auburn? Matt Campbell? Matt Rule?
They'll try. They may try to get Matt Rule. He'll be a hot name thrown around probably. I'm sure they'll take a run at Lane Kiffin. There's probably some legs there. They won't spare any expense, I'll tell you that. But I'm trying to think who else.
There's not a lot of big names in college football that are available.
No, people are asking about prime time. I don't see him a fit at Auburn. But
prime time? Okay. Why isn't he not a fit there?
I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the right fit. I'm expecting him to maybe be the next coach at Florida State, possibly.
Oh, you mean if the job isn't completed properly, or if Norvell moves on?
Yeah, if Norvell runs out of time, I mean, what's his record going to be this year? What's he 4-3 right now?
Well, I don't know exactly, but
he's looking at a 6-7 win.
This is a better year, though. Don't you think Florida State's, from what you've seen, they've been playing better?
A little bit. They got some breaks early. They had some fortuitous.
Yeah, they had the LSU kicking
in their
break.
First couple games that could have been losses that would have destroyed their season. So they're hanging in there. But they did lose 3 in a row in one stretch.
You're right.
They're middle of the pack.
Yeah, they haven't been able to. Yeah, they're not yet, because those 3 losses were against the 3 top teams in their division: Clemson, North Carolina State, and Wake. And that just showed that they are not there yet. But at least they were close, and they're not making stupid mistakes and looking like they're dysfunctional anymore.
No, they haven't.
So that's a good step. It's a good first step. And what do you think about the game this week? What's your gut tell you about this matchup?
Man, I'll tell you, I think Miami is going to need a lot more offense, man. I think if they don't open up the playbook, I don't think they'll win the game. I think that they have to open up the playbook and they have to play well to beat this team. Florida State's probably playing a little bit better football than Miami right now, but Miami has enough, like I've said in every game, that if they play well, they can win. And obviously they can't give it away. They're not that good, but look, I mean, their defense has been playing better. if their offense can do something, you never know.
All right. Well, we'll check.
They're 9-point underdogs at home against Florida State, Greg.
Yeah, I know. I was a little bit surprised how large the point spread was.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see what they're saying, but it's a rivalry game. Come on, man. It's a rivalry game. Everybody plays, especially the underdog. Don't forget those underdogs in rivalry games. Anything can happen.
Yeah. No doubt.
And what is it, a night game or a day game?
Yeah, night games, ABC.
Good. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy it. By the way, Mike Huguenin is going to be on next Wednesday. So I'm going to have Mike on next Wednesday. I was thinking that's good because this week's we're slammed, but because I haven't talked to Mike in a few years. So I'm glad I'm going to get the opportunity to talk to Mike again on the On3.com network. And Gary, appreciate your time as always. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk before the season's over.
Anytime, Greg.
You got it. Thanks,
Good
Gary.
talking.